important to note that Dr. Denison was also part of the Royal Commission looking into the operations and management of the police. Yeah. So here's a question, of course, about the Royal Commission and of course the report. What led to the formation of the Royal Commission in the first place, or what is known as Tun Zaidin's Commission, and what was the process that was undertaken by the Commission, the recommendations, and as of now, how far have any of these recommendations been implemented? Doctor?
Thank you very much. I think firstly I would like to thank the Bar for this invitation. I myself underestimated the time from Subang to Shah Alam. I thought I can make it under 15 minutes and make it for the tea break as well as be here, but I made it in time for Mr. Thiru's sharing of his reflections. I think in terms of the Royal Police Commission, there were 16 of us who were appointed to the Royal Commission, including Tun Zaidin, and Tun Hanif was the deputy. One of the commissioners passed away, Tan Sri Dato Sri Azizan, who passed away, but I think, I'm not sure, was Dato Kutbul then the chair of the Bar, or he was the past president of the Bar?
Immediate past president.
Immediate. So there was someone directly from the Bar, and I think the Bar was quite active in providing input and expert opinions in working groups and various other areas. And there were one or two lawyers who were, I think, working on contract and so forth to help the Commission. I think one needs to reflect at this period in time. It was Tun Abdullah taking over as the Prime Minister, and the public opinion on the police was quite low. There was a very negative perception of the police, and also the issues pertaining to death in custody, remand, arrest, all kinds of issues that was there, including the ISA, complaints of corruption, abuse of power. And it's within this context that the Royal Commission was set up. And if you look at the team of people who were appointed and the work that was done, it was people who I would say, appointed through the political process, not as politicians, but through the Prime Minister at that time, as well as a direct appointment from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. But in the course of the work, because there were public inquiries, and if one attended just one inquiry or two, one would have a different impression. But if you went from big cities to small towns and listened continually to the complaints of people, then you would see that the issues that are being recorded cuts across all the different communities, ethnic, religious, the violations, and I think it was almost unanimous. I think there's only one area that we disagreed, and that's reflected in the report, and I agree with Mr. Sivan Thiru and all the campaigning for the IPMC and the need for it, and civil society commitment, and PROHAM likewise is. But there is so much more in the document, and later, if given an opportunity, I want to highlight one or two areas that need to be addressed. I think from a former commissioner's point of view, you can't just have one, if others don't fall into place. Actually, even if there is no real compliance of human rights, and if there isn't a political culture to allow or have an independent IPMC. But I think the Commission then felt very strongly after the visit to Singapore, London, Australia, Hong Kong, that they wanted to draft something that could be put up. Because if you look at the implementation, there was time frame as well to it. And that's why the actual draft legislation was done by Tun Saleh Abbas then, with the support of the staff who were lawyers working in the commission at that point. And so there was something that government could, and Steve is right on the kind of reaction and what came in its place. And that's very similar to the sort of things Suhakam has gone. I served on Suhakam as well for 2 terms. And then to see Suhakam's budget cut by 50% and the Enforcement Commission cut by 40%. And there is lots of money floating around in federal government and billions which are hand over. And these commissions, like Suhakam's annual budget has only been about 10 million. What is 10 million? The context of 200 billion and the other billions that are missing. I hope that sets the tone. So if there isn't an overall commitment to accountability, transparency, a commitment to independent investigations in the way the Commission report has identified. And if you just heard Steve's speech now, I think it's almost played back 10 years ago that all these things were the reason why the Royal Commission was set up. And I think some of the senior members of the Royal Commission who are still around are literally horrified in its lack of implementation and even engagement with former commissioners. So if you ask me, what has not, I'm only following what the media has, because there's no engagement with the Royal Commission members subsequently, except for the initial period. But subsequently, other than what comes out in the media. So it's a document, it's there, and I think many of us are happy that both civil society and all the organizations that keep bringing the document back to the forefront. And like many Royal Commission reports, they are in a similar situation, that there were people appointed through the Prime Minister and appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. And if you look at Royal Commission reports, they are actually historical, credible reports that have gone through a very tedious process, and then writing it out, debating it, checking it, and then standing. But the Commission, Royal Commission's job ends there, and it's then up to government whether it wants it or not. It's the same problem, and I think in another context where the Suhakam's land review report, it's I think more than 2.5 years already, and the 800 over people who came before the Commission, and there has been a task force and now there's a cabinet committee, but not a single solution to the complaints. And that is a tragic end to this process. So I think we need to do more. And I think this panel can address that. Thank you.